Hi, and welcome to The Actor, the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, here we go, for better or worse.
Josh. It's always exciting. All right, so today we're doing our top 10s of 2022. And as we record this, it's almost April, so we're like pretty far behind, but that's okay. It took me a little while, a lot of time actually, to get to the point where I was at least comfortable with talking about movies from 2022, because there was a bunch that I had not seen. So I tried to catch up as quickly as I could. But sounds like you've done a pretty good job of staying on top of it.
Well, until you go to the released list of 2022 and you're like, oh, yep, didn't see that. Oh, yep, didn't see that. And then you just go through it. I mean, I've seen quite a bit, but it just reminds you how much you haven't seen, and it's impossible in a way. It's impossible.
Well,
it's
that's
not
true,
like,
unless it's a professional, unless like that's your professional thing to do. I did tabulate, of course, because you know how nerdy I am. I have watched 47. Okay, how committed I am to watching movies. I watched 47 movies that came out in 2022 over the last year and change. So I mean, that's not bad. It's pretty good.
No. That's good.
You've probably watched a similar number. You just may not have tabulated it up, but because there's definitely movies you have seen that I haven't seen, and vice versa. So, I mean, I think that we're both doing yeoman's work here. So
we're not slackers, but then I divert into Daisy Jones and the Six, and then I divert into Yellow
Riley
Jackets.
Keough, though.
Oh my gosh! Don't even get me started. We have to have a whole podcast on just her again because. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what the words are. She is infinitely natural. Yeah. There is nothing put on about her ever.
I'll try with one word. Chameleonic?
Yes, that's good, but I'm talking about the organic naturalism she has. It's just I don't know what her process is. I would love to hear about it. I don't know if she's a researcher, a studier of the craft. I don't know what she is, but whatever she is, I want just a little bit of it, just a little spoonful.
Well,
and I'll be okay.
I actually got to see you treading the boards
Good
a couple weeks ago. So it was really cool. I sneakily went up to Richmond and was able to watch you in Lewiston, and it was a treat. It really was.
Well, good. I'm glad. It was shocking to see you. I was that night was special. That was the best show of the run, I think. And I'm saying hello to everybody. And I know people that I knew certain people were going to be there. And I was shocked that my niece came on Saturday night, not Sunday. So that was a surprise. Our buddy Chad, who does the music for our podcast, came with his two sons. Yeah, and with his two sons. And they were the first two people I saw coming out of the dressing room. And they're 13 and 14. So their level of theater, I don't know what it is. I know they've been exposed to theater, but I don't know what they've been exposed to. Somewhat. Kind of know, but not really. And my one nephew, Jamel, he grabbed me by my elbows and he was like, his eyes got really big and he was like, you did good. And I was like, okay, no matter what happens from this point on, I'm good, because they were really proud and really, and then I go to say hello to my friends who I knew were going to be there. And then I'm saying hello to their husbands, and I turn and I see this guy standing up against the wall. And I was like, oh, I'm wondering, like, what's he doing? I don't know what I was thinking. I was just thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. And then it was like, it went from blurry to focused, and I realized it was you. And I was dumbfounded. I just couldn't put it in my mind. I couldn't. What people have to understand is in terms of how I saw it, is you drove 2.5 hours each way to come and see an hour-and-a-half show. That is mind-boggling to me. It's just, I couldn't compute it. And then when I don't think I've hugged you, or we've hugged as much as I did that night. I kept hugging you like I was like, oh my God, it's Josh.
Yeah.
It's
We've
Josh.
only seen each other like in real life. We've only seen each other like twice in the last, 4 years or something. So it's been,
in person. Right.
Yeah, in person. Yeah. So even though we talk like almost every week, but it's,
And then you drove away and I was like, yes, of all the shows, that should have been the one. So thank you for that. That was mind blowing, dude.
Well, that
Mind-blowing.
show, I mean, like I said, that's the one that I went to, and I'm glad I went to that particular show, because you said that of all the shows you've done, like that's the one you felt like really good about. But it was powerful. Like your performance, actually, the performance of all three actors was amazing, but it was serious and deep and genuine. So it was a lot. So I mean, and that's the other thing, is that I don't go to a lot of theaters. So like being in that room, I was able to like receive the play in a way that I understood and appreciated, that like, this is real people really in front of me, really feeling these feelings. And so even though it's a play, it was still, it was touching, and it was a great experience. So thank you for
killing me. You're killing me, man. I'm super proud of that night. I really am.
Yeah, no.
And I was trying to hold on to not do this, because I knew it was going to happen, and I was trying to hold on. And I was like, as soon as we start talking about it, I'm going to go. But that whole day, I was excited more than I was nervous, which is unusual for me. Normally, I'm just like, ah, and then 5 seconds before I took the stage, I thought I was going to pass out. And luckily, I didn't know you were there. I didn't know Chad was there. I didn't know half of the people that were there. Thank goodness gracious. And I stepped on the stage, and I was like, oh man, I think this might be the night that I just go down. Like I felt really off. I think I just all built up in that 5 seconds. And the lights went down, and the narration came up, and then I took the stage, and I don't know if you could see, but I have to place things around me, my glasses, my lighter, all this other stuff. I carried 3 of those lighters, 3 of them. I was so scared, because one night it wouldn't go off. And what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about, is I had to set off a firework at the beginning of this show, which I thought was pretty cool, actually. And there was a moment where time slowed down, and I lit the lighter, and the flame went. At the same rate, the lights came up. At the same rate, the moment that the optimum glow happened, I lit that firework, and it all kind of went off at the same time. I said, I'm good. I'm good. And I don't remember anything from the audience. I mean, I remember hearing you guys, and I remember the curtain call, which was amazing. And but I can't remember anything but what was actually going on. And when we came off stage that night, all 3 of us were like, what? And Ashley Marnie, the young 24-year-old, turns to me and she goes, did you feel when I was eating the pizza? Yeah. Josh knows what we're talking about because he saw the show, which is really difficult to do, by the way.
Why would he do that to you? Why would the playwright do that to you?
And tater tots, which are the driest things to ever put in an actor's mouth. Ugh. Did you notice the one actress handed me water? Yeah. That was kind of like because I got one stuck one time in the back of my throat, and I was like, ah. Anyway, so when we came off stage, we were talking about it right before we came out and saw you guys, and she was like, did we miss something in the pizza scene? I said, nope. She goes, nothing was dropped. And I said, nope. And she goes, I think we dropped something because it was so real. I said, yep. It was so real. Like, it was like we were having a conversation as if we'd never said those words before. And we said those words for 8 weeks. So I'm super proud that you came to that one, and I'm super happy. And thank you so much for making that journey, because
thank you. Yeah, that was great. Woo! Well, the good thing is that we're going to talk about a lot of movies, I think, today that I think have some scenes like that I can only imagine that, the actors and the craftsmen as a part of that, really, felt those things in those moments. But the cool thing about theater, though, is that you get to experience that over and over again. Whereas like in the movies, it's kind of like you kind of do it and you move on. Now, in some ways, it's the other side of the coin, where I can go back. Like, there's movies that I went back to over the last week or so, and I rewatched certain scenes. There's some movies that I rewatched completely, and they hit me harder the second time, third time, fourth time than that. And so like that is, there's like a give and take with that, but ultimately it's all art. It's all, performance and all that stuff. But I'm excited to go over our top 10 movies that each of us have decided on separately, and then we're gonna tell each other what they are. Although I did give away a little bit a couple weeks ago, but we'll see. Maybe something changed. You never know. But we're going to start at 10, go to 1, and then we'll go back and forth. And if the other person has the same movie, we'll wait to talk about it until we get to that movie for the second person. So, we'll start at 10. Actually, we'll start with honorable mentions. Do you have any honorable mentions? Like anything that barely didn't make it?
Well, 3 of them kind of...
Okay.
Rotated into the list at some point. And so I was like, okay, I have to pick a number 10. And I was like, okay, well, these 2 will go to honorable mention. And then it flipped back and flipped back and flipped back. After Sun was in the top 10. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. Charlotte Webb, right?
Charlotte Wells.
Wells, thank you. Sorry. I had just seen Charlotte's Web. So forgive me on that one. And we've talked about it and we've said a lot about it on some level. And for people who might not get it or it might not be their thing. Let's put it that way. Not that they don't get it. It might just not be their thing. Just imagine a movie about things that you don't normally talk about in movies. You go to do your laundry. What kind of laundry detergent you have? You don't discuss that in movies, but that's what's discussed in After Sun. Not that particular thing, but just, vacation journeys and what they're going to do at the pool and sitting by the pool and just talking about their night, their day, their everyday things. And the in-between of what's not being said is fascinating. So After Sun is honorable mention, and then The Woman King, which was in the top 10, and it kept rotating in and out. Such a powerful movie. I can't wait to see it again. I know it's going to have not a stronger impact, because it had a very strong impact on me the first time. I can't wait to see how I feel about it a second time. And, Viola Davis, you can't go wrong. So yeah, those are my 2 honorable mentions before my top 10 list starts.
Yeah, they were in my honorable mentions also. And then I'll bring up 2 more. One was Barbarian, which I've talked about before as far as a horror movie. Well, you probably should be, I guess. But it's such a very specific thing. It does what good horror movies do, where it knows that you're watching a horror movie, and it uses that to its advantage. I think that there's other movies out there, more like psychological movies, that do this too. And I will compare it tangentially to a movie like Funny Games, Michelle Haneke's Funny Games, which is a serious movie, but also has a lot of it has a lot of gimmicks to it that really do work. And the second movie that I'll bring up is a movie that I don't know if it came out last year. I think it did come out in theaters last year for a very short period of time, and I finally caught up with it. It's another movie that it's a very challenging movie, and it's not in my top 10, but I do want to bring it up in this end of year thing, because it's a movie made by Phil Tippett, he started off doing the stop motion animation for Star Wars, like the original Star Wars: A New Hope, and the other he did all the stop motion animation for the Tauntauns in Empire Strikes Back, and he was supposed to do the stop motion animation for Jurassic Park, but they ended up doing all CGI, so he ended up helping out the CGI animators with his animators and collaborated. But this whole time, for the last 30 years, from 1990 until now, he's been trying to make this stop motion animation movie, and he finally got it done last year, or I guess late 2021, whatever. But it's called Mad God, and it is trippy, super trippy. It doesn't have any dialogue. It is out there, man. And I can't say that I necessarily enjoyed it, but it as an achievement, it is an amazing achievement, making a fully you're looking at the screenshots. I'm probably
reading it. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's pretty dark, but it's an amazing achievement. And I think that there's probably a way to watch it where you I wish I could excise certain things, and I'm I would never need to see that again. But there's some stuff that's just so specific, and and so like the attention to detail is amazing in it. And so, I mean, it is definitely not for everybody. In fact, it's not for most people or maybe 90% of people, but I felt like I appreciated the artistry and the attention to detail it took to make that movie and to stick with something for 30 years to get it done. Whether I necessarily like agree or appreciate every single frame, I don't know, but it was still something that I was like, this dude worked really hard. It was one of those movies where like you're watching it and like the whole time you're watching it, you're kind of like, oh, you got your eyes a little bit squinted and you're kind of like turning your head a little bit, but yeah, you got your looking through your hand.
I do it all the time.
But yeah, I don't know. I was just like, this is a lot, but I appreciated it. Oh, one other one I did want to bring up that didn't make my top 10 was RRR, but
I haven't seen it yet.
You're going to love it.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to love it. I think that you have to like give yourself over to it, and that is you're perfectly fine doing that. And once you do that, it's peaches and cream. Yeah, you're going to love it.
Well, just because of the song and the
yes, not too one. Yeah.
The performance was amazing, and that dance style is amazing. And I'm like, I don't think I could have 30 years ago moved my body like that.
They're doing it, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah. What was the movie the animated movie that you were just talking about?
Oh, Mad God. Yeah.
It looked like a Tool video. Remember those?
Oh, it kind of. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of rough stuff in there. Yeah.
I'm in a really sugar-coated space right now. Not that that's a bad thing. I guess I shouldn't describe it like that. I want to watch The Last of Us, but I can't do virus, effect, apocalypse. I can't do it right now. I just need. Yeah. So I watched Hamilton again.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. Okay. All right. So let's start with number 10. What's your number 10?
Living, the Bill Nighy film.
I haven't seen it.
Really, really sweet film. Really nice. I did not realize it was a Kurosawa remake until I was just looking it back up. Ikiru, right. Yeah.
I kind of want to watch Ikiru and then watch Living.
Yeah, and now that I've seen scenes from Ikiru, I was like, yeah, and it would have been nice to have a reference, but in a way, I'm kind of glad I didn't because I took the movie in for what it was versus what I might be comparing it to. Even though I'm really not that sorry. My iPad is moving and doing weird things. It might all of a sudden tilt, so just bear with me. Right. But there is a scene at the end of the movie that they kind of sort of do a compare and contrast type of thing, even though it's very similar. And it's a very touching scene at the end without giving anything away. And the moment was powerful in the Living version of it. So I can't imagine what the original version was like. So I can't wait to go back and watch it. And it will be on my list. But it's a sweet movie, and it's a affirmation of life type of film. And it's been done a million times before, but something about Bill Nighy's performance brings you in, and it's solid. And I'm glad he was recognized by the Oscars. And I'm glad it's one of those films that would I have searched it out if it wasn't for the Oscars? I'm not so sure. Not in this time frame, maybe eventually, and it would have come to me at the pace it would have come to me at. But because of the Oscars, I saw it, and it's just one of those great afternoons at the theater, and you come out and you're like, okay, life is good. And I'm not that guy, at least not in the beginning of the film. And I'm not where he's at, and I will never be where he's at. I'm where he's at the end of the film, which is a great thing. So that doesn't really give anything away, hopefully, but it's a really, really gentle, just well done. That scene at the end I'm talking about, there's an expression, there's no small parts, only small actors. Have you ever heard that expression? Mm-hmm. And there's an actor at the end, he has one scene and he just delivers. And he's not in any of the other parts of the film. He's not anybody you've come to know. It's not like you've built up an affection for this guy. He just knocks it out. And I don't even know his name, and I should look it up, but it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, that's the job. That's the job. And it's really an important part of the movie. And so it's just nice. It's nice to go and see something that unfolds like a book, unfolds like a play. And it's just well done. It's very well done.
Was it weird seeing Bill Nighy in a serious role? Because I think I've only seen him in comedic roles like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead. I mean, he's in so many movies that.
What's the one where he plays the pop star?
Oh yeah, that's Love Actually.
Yeah.
He plays the pop star. Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that movie, so
like
I
that
just have
movie.
to come out of the closet when it comes to that movie because I'm not a big something about it bugs me.
It's
People
probably
are,
Richard Curtis. Like he makes like very similar movies. Like he's the one who did
He's-
all the like, was it like late '90s through the 2000s British rom-coms? Like yeah, Notting Hill. I think he did that one.
I like that movie too.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But-
No, I don't have a problem. The character's so well drawn that you separate the thing that he doesn't, he's
Yeah.
that wiry thing he does. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I keep wanting to say Almost Famous. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Almost Famous.
No. Well, I mean, I don't know. It would probably take me like 5 minutes and I'll be like, okay, fine. He's a different guy. But yeah, it's weird because I've only seen him in comedic roles. So that is, it's like Adam Sandler. It's like seeing Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love. You're like, what? Okay. All right. I gotcha.
It takes 2 minutes for me to switch.
Yeah.
In both those instances, 2 minutes. And the character's so different. Bill Nighy's character is so different than what you're expecting. It won't take long at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, my number 10 is the Batman.
Oh, we're going to talk about it.
Later. What's your number 9?
Triangle of Sadness.
We're talking about it later.
Okay. Good. I'm glad.
All right. And my number 9 is Glass Onion.
We're talking about it later.
Wow, we are lined up. Like the last few years, we have not been lined up.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
I had a feeling about this.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're number 8?
Women talking.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Okay. There's not much more to say than what we've said. People should see it. People search it out. It's she won an Oscar for a reason. And I'm glad she did. And I was happy because we talked about that. We talked about the screenplay in particular, and we talked about the fact that screenplays are not just the words, that they are the scene with the boys walking on the fence. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The scenes in the classroom, the scenes of the men leaving in the beginning. Those are all part of the screenplay. The scene where they're walking home at night and the drunkard's in his house. All part of the screenplay. And the sun in its quick, epic rise or, and lower, depending on what time of the day it is, which is important because that takes place over 2.5 days. So it's important that that time frame is established. So there's not much more to say other than I can't wait to see it again. But I have to go easy. I have to go slowly. I have to be in the right frame of mind again because I have a feeling the second time I watch it, it's going to anger me. It didn't anger me. It uplifted me the first time. But if I start to really break it down and what they had to go through and the fact that that beginning quote that we talked about, without giving too much away, it can start to spin my brain into a place of not anger, just not depression, just the thought that people have to go through things like that in this existence it's mind-boggling to me.
I think that the fact that they have to advocate to allow for their voices to be heard, like that's the part where you can start going down a rabbit hole and being like, what they're just having to fight to get to 0, and then they can start.
Well, they're fighting amongst themselves to try to figure out exactly what their point of attack is.
Yeah, but you start, like I said, you start spinning out and saying like, why are they having to have a point of attack? It's because of, the vulnerability that has been built in to their relationships in the community. And so like they've never felt up until this point that they've had the ability to advocate for themselves. And they're just now starting to work through that. And there's people, Frances McDormand's character, that don't want to even entertain that. So, I mean, that's the that's where they're at, at the beginning of the movie, and just at the very, just the first, like, I mean, shoot, the first almost hour is them trying to decide whether they want to fight or not. So
yeah,
that's, that.
And the fact
says a
that
lot.
human beings have to fight for an hour to figure out what they're going to do and what their options are is it just can twist me a little bit. And so I have to, I'm like I said, Alexander Hamilton is where my brain is, even though that has a lot of serious moments in it. It's got some really hardcore moments in it, but I need something. I need serious. I don't have a problem with serious, but I need something else right now. I'm into a lot of the Batman animation stuff right now because I just can't deal with it. I just can't deal.
You'd rather see Condiment Man, like, just kind of,
What's Condiment Man?
He's in Batman the Animated Series. That's an actual bad
right.
guy.
I do know what you're talking about. The guy who does the musical tune. I don't know what his name is. But he like sings everything and he puts people in trances because he sings, but he sings musicals.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that's crazy. And Kite Man, there are a lot of odd Batman. Condiment Man, please.
It's real.
Yes, I need Condiment Man. I know exactly who you're talking about. Because at first I was like, what? Every time I hear condiments, I think of Fight Club. And the destruction of his refrigerator and how embarrassing it was that all he had in his refrigerator was mustard. Yes, and I'm getting ready to go on a little trip, so all I have in my refrigerator right now is chicken salad and condiments.
All right, well, my number 8 is Triangle of Sadness, so let's talk about Triangle of Sadness. I will say that I mean, we've had a whole episode on The Square, Ruben Östlund. I'm kind of I'm definitely, like, I would say I'm a Ruben Östlund fanboy. I know he's gotten a little bit of I don't know, backlash or something, but I think he's definitely driving in his lane in this movie, and the French people love this lane, and that's probably why they gave him the Palme d'Or. But I think that there's enough meat on the bone in Triangle of Sadness to keep me interested. And even though when we talked about it in the past on the podcast, we've talked about there's some predictable things about it. There's some kind of like cliched things about some of the arguments, especially the scene where Woody Harrelson's liberal and the Russian conservative jaw back and forth over the intercom in the yacht. And there's, he's playing around with a lot of the same concepts that he started to dig into in The Square, and also to a certain extent in Force Majeure. Have you seen Force Majeure?
I started it and then I couldn't. Yeah,
it's that, like,
the opening scene is rough.
Well, it is, but then it's that, like, clench it, like you're just clenching yourself the whole movie, because, like, it's always tense all the time. And The Square is not necessarily always tense all the time, but it definitely has those, like, that awkwardness. And then Triangle of Sadness, to me, it has this, I mean, it's somewhat predictable in certain cases, but at the same time, you see how you see in the different phases of the film. There's 3 distinct phases of the film. I guess you could call them acts if you wanted to, even though characters are different in each of those phases. But it shows you each of these different characters in different situations, and then it also really fleshes out the characters that he decides to focus on. And I appreciate that. And it's also clever. I mean, I like cleverness. So that's what I like about it.
I agree with everything that you said. I have heard, why is he getting backlash? What is,
I think
because he's becoming, people are hearing his voice finally?
Well, Ruben Östlund? No, I think it's just the stuff that the things that I've seen kind of back and forth, whether it's, Reddit stuff that I've gone over, where it's just it's very, certain people are like, this is very surface, but what's actually, is he really trying to, like, stick it to the man, or is it just, is it just the ruminations of someone who is trying to bring out the pitfalls of capitalism, for example. So, yeah.
Art is in the eye of the beholder. That's my response to that. I have heard some rumblings about how the first act is not as great as the second act. The second act is a little too over the top for the third act. The third act works, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, people, it's called Triangle of Sadness. There are 3 parts to that movie. And I think all 3 parts are distinct and they fit, but at the same time, they could be 3 separate movies. If you made the first part longer, the second part longer, you could have 3 separate movies. The fact that they interlock, almost loosely interlock to a degree, because there are characters in the third and second act that are in the first act, but really only 2 of them.
You're right, but the third act works because of the first act. If you don't have the first act, you're not gonna. It's not gonna pay off in the third act.
I just did that hand thing with my face. Whoa! That's crazy. Woo!
It's your camera.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's pretty funny. So I like the fact that, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on because I've said this before. I like a writer-director who says, I'm going to do one thing, and they continue to do it. They don't find a scapegoat. They don't say, oh, well, we have Woody Harrelson, so we can't do this. He does do that. It does not matter that Woody Harrelson is a national treasure. He does do the things that he needs to do to continue the film, especially from the second act to the third act, if that's how you want to identify it. I like the fact that we talked about this before once I saw it. I like the fact that the references during that argument are understandable. I might have even spoken about in the square about how sometimes I can hold on to understanding certain things as an audience member, but I'm really not in on the joke, or I'm really not in on the reference, or I can understand through context what they're talking about, but I don't know that Russian writer. I don't know that French writer. I don't know that Spanish writer. I don't know that American writer. I don't know that American poet, musician, whatever, but I can hold on to the context of it. And I think the square borderlines on just a little too much over my head. And maybe in philosophy, maybe in themes, it's just right there where I need that museum guide in my ear saying, this is the reason why this is considered art. I don't need to be spoon-fed, but I do like the references and knowing, and then I can look at something. We've talked about this a million times. I can look at something and say, oh, okay, well, to me, I felt this. Was it because of the historical background of it? Was it because of the texture of the paint that the artist used? What was it? And if I have a reference, I can kind of figure it out. I think it was smart that I've heard people say that he kind of dumbs things down in this film so a bigger audience would be attracted to it. This is not.
It's his first English language film, so you got to keep that in mind. So in some ways, you could say that's dumbing it down for people because you increase your audience by making it an English language film. You just do.
But there is nothing that is dumbed down for people in this movie. This movie is perplexing and complex and layered. And if this is your first view of this guy's world, your mind is going to be going in 1,000 different directions. And especially at the end, I love the whole idea of the choices that we make and the ramifications of those choices and the following through with those choices. And one character in particular in the third act follows completely through to the choice that they make. And I like that. I like the whole idea of, without giving too much away, I like the whole idea of, oh, all we had to do is look that way and we could have solved the issue. But we weren't. We were focused on this over here. And all they had to do is look that way. Or all they had to do was think, why not do this? Which comes later on. And then they do that. And a whole other world opens up, if you will. But the one character in particular sticks to it. And I like that. And I think it's a movie well, I've only seen it once so far, and I'm not sure how many times I'll watch it again, but it is 100% in my brain. Like, I can see it as we're talking about it. I can see the moments as we're speaking about it, and I have thought about it. It has consistently popped up in my brain, and I'm like, oh, that's clever, but in a profound way.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those movies, especially in the third act, and we can move on after this. What would you do if you were in these situations? What would you do?
Mm-hmm.
And I love things like that.
No, that's awesome. That's great. What's your number 7?
Tar.
We're talking about it later.
I already know. I knew when I wrote it down.
All right, my number 7's Babylon, and we'll talk about it right now.
Wow. Yes, we will.
See, I told you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not just because it's a Damien Chazelle film. I mean, we talked about it a few months ago. I've gotten a lot from that movie, and I've seen it a couple of times, and I think it just came out actually on Blu-ray too. So I will probably be picking it up. I think that there's enough in there for me to, and I've probably said this before, but there's enough in there for me to dip in and out of that movie and really like appreciate it for what it is, and not have to take on the epic scale of every single part of it. I think Margot Robbie is great in the film. I think that what is his name? Oh man, Eduardo Calva, I think. Edgar Calva is fine. He's good, but the ancillary characters, I would call Brad Pitt an ancillary character. Jean Smart is awesome in the movie. I mean, she's kind of, it seems like with I mean, I'm trying to remember. I guess it would be Watchmen is when I was like, oh, okay, Jean Smart is here. Like, she's here to play. Like, she's in it. So, and then seeing her in that, seeing her in this, seeing her in Hacks. Have you seen that show?
I love it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So,
love it.
Like, she's here. I don't want to say she's back. Maybe she never left. But
no, she's been working consistently since Designing Women.
So she is here, and she's ready to go. So yeah, you put together all those things with Damien Chazelle's love of film and his juice. Like, he's got the juice, enough juice to make a movie exactly how he wants to make it. I just read another article that, I didn't realize that the new Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, that's coming out in October, he got a $280 million budget for that movie. Like, I read the book. It doesn't seem like it needs $280 million. It really does not. But he's got the juice. I mean, he's Martin Scorsese. So, like, what are you going to do? Apple is going to back the truck up and just dump it all out. So that is, I mean, this is the movie that I think that Damien Chazelle's like, I got to make this while I can, because it may not happen again, especially the way that movies are going, just the film industry in general. If it doesn't have Marvel attached to it, or if it doesn't have Tom Cruise involved in it, then you're probably not going to be able to get an insane amount of money to make a passion project.
It's going to change.
Marvel
Marvel has not had its time, but its time is...
It's on the down slope. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's always going to be around, which I'm glad about, but it is definitely not. People know there are other things that are important in the film world to people like us, to just general audiences. There are other things, and Tom Cruise proves it. Top Gun proves it. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, Babylon, I can't wait to see again. I just need to, once again, go slowly, because the excess of that film was a bit much for me. And I have some issues with it, but they're all kind of superficial, so I don't even like to mention them, because it makes me sound, first of all, superficial. And second of all, it's not important, because you've extracted so much from it. There's nothing I could do or say, and there's no reason why I would want to do or say anything that would inhibit your like of that movie. So I said what I said, and I'll leave it at what I originally said. I was engaged for 2.5 to 45, whatever it is. It's a long movie. I was engaged the whole time, for better, for worse. The things I liked, disliked, the things I thought, well, no, I don't like that. What's going on there? I was never disconnected from it. That's the power of Damien Chazelle. He wraps you in, and that's it. You're going to watch his movie. You're going to watch his world. And I think you're right. If that's the reason why he can make this movie now is because they're going to back the truck up, then that's fine. I just think that there's some people you just don't say no to, and Martin Scorsese is one of them.
Well,
and 20 years from now, Damien Chazelle will be one of them, if he's not already one of them. So, I mean, it's hard-pressed to put the two because of the bodies of work at this point, the quantity of work from Scorsese versus Damien Chazelle, if you will. Quality, totally there. So yeah, I am looking forward to seeing Babylon again, just not anytime soon, because Alexander Hamilton.
The guy's name is Diego Calva, who I couldn't come up with his name earlier. Okay, so let's see here. We've got that was my number 7. Your number 6 is
The Batman.
All right, let's talk about it.
We have arrived. I've seen it a handful of times already. I saw it twice in the movie theater. I had to resist watching it again the other night because, once again, a little too dark. And then as I was trying to figure out what I was going to watch for the next half an hour, I think, give or take a couple of minutes, I thought about The Batman. And I kept thinking about, that movie, it has a quality about it. It's dark. It's dirty. It's dank. It's for real dark, dirty, and dank. Not, with all due respect, Joker dirty. It's filthy. The movie looks filthy and it feels filthy, which is a high holy compliment because Gotham should feel that way. And you know me, I'm a huge Batman fan. I for a split second thought I was wearing a Batman shirt, but I'm not. I'm wearing my Pride Virginia Museum of Fine Arts shirt. I think I had a Batman shirt on earlier, but that's besides the point. And I realized something, that Robert Pattinson is the only Batman on film to date that I don't recognize behind the cowl. And it's partially him. It's partially the design of the cowl, which I was not happy with at first, and we've talked about that. But the simplicity of the leather and the way it's stitched together, and I like the ode to the 1960 Batman nose. I don't know if that's on purpose or, but it reminded me of that. If I was 10, I'd be like, they did that on purpose. And so the performances are stunning. The atmosphere is. It's so dark, and he got away with it, and I can't wait to see what happens next. And I hope whatever Matt Reeves tapped into, that he stays tapped into that. Whatever the one idea he had that was the catalyst to how he got through everything. I wasn't a huge fan of what they did with the Riddler at first, but that's only because I'm a Riddler fan. Like, he's my favorite villain. And so I was wondering, and I said this, could he have done a mainstream Riddler? What would that have looked like? What would that have been like? Because they keep talking about Mr. Freeze for the next movie. I don't know what they're going to do and how he could possibly do that. And I think he's actually mentioned that that would be an intriguing thought. The idea of him, Matt Reeves, and those actors getting together to put Gotham under Mr. Freeze's claws, if you will, or freeze gun, if you will, is thrilling to me. Can he do it? I don't know. But it looks like he could give it a good shot. So I can't wait to see what happens next. And I'm thrilled that there is an Elseworld type Batman on film.
Yeah.
And it is definitely an Elseworld.
And we don't know what James Gunn's going to do with his own Batman stuff, because he's now, like, he has the keys to the kingdom as far as DC is concerned. Yay! But it sounds like, well, I mean, yeah, we were just watching Guardians of the Galaxy before I came up here. So, it's
what his ideas are and what he's presented so far, I'm thrilled about.
Yeah.
Thrilled about.
But this The Batman section, just like Joker, that section are gonna, it sounds like, be separate. So I think that you're right. The aesthetic of this film is perfect. It is its own thing. It's a separate thing, just right down to the Gothic downtown Wayne Manor. I mean, it is not something that we've seen before on film. So I don't know about all the graphic novels and all that stuff, but still, it makes itself its own thing. and it commits to that. And for me, it's the combination of the sound design and the score, and just it's the aesthetic extends past the cowl, or the face makeup, the eye makeup, all of that. It extends past all of that. It's more lived in. There's a lot of rain. There's a lot of like this kind of just like grimy, grungy stuff, and it doesn't feel artificial. So that's cool, and I'm excited to see what Matt Reeves does also, and how they extend this through, and what they're gonna use to make these characters move forward in their own stories, separate from what I'm sure is going to be some sort of Justice League something, James Gunn, Superman, Batman mashup, whatever. But it doesn't have to be the same. So that's good. I mean, in that way, DC, I think, is doing the right thing, whereas Marvel has got this like centralized, connected universe.
Right.
Even though it's like the multiverse now and all that stuff, but it's still a centralized, connected universe. DC is saying, like, we're going to do what comic books have done forever. We're going to have this, this person's going to do this character this way, and that person's going to do that character that way. And just, it's going to be a different way of interpreting the same. I mean, I guess it would be like doing Hamlet, in contemporary Shakespearean times, and doing Hamlet in, present day, that kind of a thing. But still, it's I don't know. It gets me excited. The attention to detail and the craft for something that is the Batman, and that is not. It doesn't seem like they made this for literally everybody, which is what I think Marvel is trying to do to a certain extent. But
well, one last thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm glad that you mentioned the sound design, because has duct tape ever sounded more scary in the film? I mean, it's scary sounding.
Yeah.
And every time you hear it, it's unnerving. And it was in the trailer, and it's sort of why I'm resisting it a little bit right now, because I can't deal with the sound of the carpet tool.
When it hits the wooden floor. Ooh.
We got helicopters.
Is that a helicopter?
Yeah, can you hear it?
I can hear it. Yeah.
It's like, sounds like more than one or two.
Are they coming for you?
Sure, because I'm that important of a person. They're going to stop me in the middle of our podcast, to come and get you. That would be scary, though. It'd be great.
Did you get
film,
swatted?
Though. God, can you imagine? That would be.
No.
We would go viral.
There you go.
Yeah. Look at me wanting to get arrested by the SWAT team so we can go viral. How modern of me, I know, right?
Oh man, it's all for the likes.
Yep.
Okay, my number 6 is Banshees of Inisherin.
It's coming.
All right.
I'm so happy it's on your list.
It is on my list.
I'm so happy.
What's your number 5?
Nope.
It's coming later.
Okay. Wow, I'm good.
All right, my number 5 is the Fabelmans. We'll talk about it very quickly. I hope and pray that you are able to let Steven Spielberg into your heart. You have just closed off your soul to one of the greatest artists of our day. But
in here, I am that important of a person. Out here and in there, in yours, I am not. And Steven Spielberg does not give two flying about me. Okay. Although I did just glow like I was in a Spielberg movie again with my hands. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, we've talked about it before, but I will reiterate that I enjoy seeing Spielberg enjoy looking back at his life through a different lens. It's not something that is necessarily a beat for beat telling of his life as a kid and his entree to film but the way that he's able to romanticize the first time he ever went to a movie and what that made him feel and how he was able to cope with things that were going on in his life by utilizing the tools and the capabilities of the moving image like that. It's really awesome. And it shows, I think it can hopefully show people that maybe not everything's going to be perfect, but there's ways that you can, like I said, there are therapeutic ways that you can move through your life and enrich your life and enrich the lives of other people if you open yourself up to that. And so, and then there's great performances in it. We talked about Paul Dano, and I know everybody's talked about Michelle Williams. She got an Academy Award nomination, but I think that people have definitely been talking about Paul Dano and what he did in that movie, and essentially a really difficult role. And he pulled it off perfectly. And then the young Steven Spielberg actor, not
LaBelle.
young, but Gabriel LaBelle. Yes. So he crushed it. So he's great, and I'm sure we'll be seeing things from him in the future.
Yeah. There's so much good. The good outweighs the bad in this film, no doubt about it. And I just wasn't connected to it. We've talked about it before. And I have now realized on some level, because we've talked about expectation, we've talked about, if I see a trailer, do I have a certain expectation? And normally I don't. Normally I completely separate, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I really have a fun time watching that, 60-second trailer or that minute trailer or that 2-minute trailer. It's a mini movie in itself. Does it affect my movie going experience? Not often. I'm wondering how much this film, if it had just floated in as one of the movies of 2022, without all the fanfare of it being a Spielberg film, without all the expectations of it being a fanfare or Steven Spielberg film, with all of the expectations of what just happened to him with West Side Story and all of the grandiose of that and how much I fell in love with that. I'm wondering if, I've said this before, in 10 or 15 years, if I see this movie again, if, Christmas Eve and there's nothing else on, and of course there's always something on, but I'm saying if that's the film I watch, maybe it will touch my heart in a different way. But for whatever reason, I separated between what I thought was happening versus what I think the movie was trying to say. And I will say this, it's the opposite effect about the Academy Awards, I think, can happen to me too. It can get me revved up and get me excited about something, and I can go and see Triangle Sadness, or I can go and see Living, and because I had never heard of these films before until the Oscar nominations put them on a pedestal, and I try to see all the nominations. So I'm wondering if this was just a little movie that just came and went without all the fanfare, what I would say about it. But not to end on a bad note, but did I not say that
it was going to get shut out? You said it. No.
I feel so bad about it too. At the end of the Oscars, I was like, no, just give him one so I could be wrong. I've never wanted to be wrong, so wrong, and I wanted to be wrong.
Yeah.
Now, there were other things that got shut out too.
Yeah.
But that's a big one. And then I was laughing about that because I was thinking, is Josh going to bring this up tonight?
Oh,
and
no. I have it written down, Paul's predictions. Like, I've got a whole list. Yeah, I started a list. That's the biggest one, is that
I went back and listed
7 nominations, and it got none.
But I was thinking about that today because I thought you were going to bring it up today on one level or the other, either the film or the nominations. And Spielberg is the king. He has been there at the Academy Awards and been shut out. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, The Color Purple is the most nominated with the most lost. It did not win anything. I think it tied with the ballet movie, which just went out of my head. Not Torch Song Trilogy. Shirley MacLaine, Mikhail Brishnikov. I can't think of the name of the movie now. But it had like 10 or 11, and it was shut out too. So Spielberg is in good territory. He knows. He's been there and not come home with nothing. He's been there and come home with everything. So he's gonna be fine. I just hope that what's the name of that damn movie?
The Turning Point.
Thank you. Yes. And I mean, Mikhail Brishnikov was nominated for that. He's an Oscar nominee for Best Supporting Actor. It's a very good film. And I think that was the most nominated with the most lost until The Color Purple. And so I think Spielberg is going to be fine. I just hope one day I get to a place where I understand the Fabelmans like you do. That's what I'm hoping.
All
So
right.
we'll see. We'll
There
see.
we go. All right, you're number 4.
The Banshees of Inisherin.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, shut out. Oh no, shut out. No, shut out.
Yeah, because Carrie
Shock.
Condon didn't win.
Yeah, shocking. And screenplay, but
I mean,
women talking.
yeah, no, women talking is. Wait, hold on. Women talking was the adapted, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, you're right.
yeah,
because
so
it's based on.
It was because Everything Everywhere All at Once won everything. That's why. So
Is that on your little list of what predictions were?
But that's a big deal. I mean, I thought you would bring that up, but we haven't talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once yet. So,
but we will.
But we will. But they did win everything. I mean, they won. Now, what's the stat? Top of the line wins. Is that right?
You could call it that. Yeah.
What is it called? Above the line, most above the line.
I don't
wins?
like any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's disrespectful to somebody who did sound
To,
design.
like,
They just
exactly,
won an Oscar.
right? It's just like
It doesn't
the
mean that
visual
because
effects
you're not.
people are, the visual effects people are like, there's like 800 of us. So yeah, what the heck?
Good for you, Michelle Yeoh. We love you, but hi. We're here too. Give the stuntmen some Oscar love. I mean, it's not that.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I don't like that. The top tier or I don't like that expression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but it did. I mean, it did win all of the things. So I mean, that right there, you're a Banshees of Inisherin, and you're gonna get short shrift, I think. But yeah. What were you saying about Banshees of Inisherin?
I once again, it's the same thing I've said since the first time I saw it, the first time we talked about it, and then at the Oscar conversation. It is a movie where the writer-director said a character's going to do this, and the character did that. It does not shortchange the audience. It does not, well, we're going to decide to do this because now the character's motivation is different. The character says, I'm going to do this if you continue to do that, and he does that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say too much about it because it is kind of like that's a spoiler in my opinion.
Yeah, but if you've seen the trailer, you can kind of like glean that. But I know what you're saying. Like,
not really though.
There's a particular like, are they gonna go there type of attention in the film, and you're right. Like, there's choices that are made by the writer director, and I think that the other thing that it does is the two main characters, the Brendan Gleeson character and the Colin Farrell character, you're not told what to think about each of the characters. You're shown the characters and expected to make your own determinations on motivations, whether they're right or not for each of the characters, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. It's a presentation of a situation or problem, or whatever it is, a puzzle that you're meant to be like, okay, like if your best friend did this to you, what would you do? Or if you had a best friend who was talking about his donkey's poop for 30 minutes, what would you do? It's one of those things where you're brought into the story not because it's so magnetic, but you're brought into the story because of the situation that's presented to you. That even though it's somewhat mundane, it's also kind of novel, and you're like, oh, well, interesting. All right, let's unpack this. So yeah, that's the part that I love. And then also you add in Carrie Condon's character, who adds the spice that is necessary to liven up the whole story, and you get a really complex scenario, and that you can talk about forever, but we've already been going for an hour, so
yeah. But there's not enough time to talk about the performances. They're stunning, and I'm giving up on Barry Keoghan. I'm giving up on it because I'm not exact. I need to hear him say it to me a couple of times.
I think you're right. I think that people just like move on past the name,
and they mispronounced it, they pronounced it differently at the Oscars. So it's like, but anyway, he is now a supporting actor Oscar nominee, and we have been wanting that for a while, so you can't say much more than that. So it is a movie that people need to watch. And one last thing, the language it's speaking of Shakespeare, it reminds me of what it's like for somebody who doesn't really know Shakespeare, or like The Commitments. You remember that movie, The
I
Commitments?
never saw it.
Oh, it's
I've
so
heard the
good.
like soundtrack, the
Oh,
music from the soundtrack.
movie's fantastic. You'll love it.
Yeah.
But they had to subtitle it in places because people couldn't understand the accents.
Jeez.
So the Banshees of Inisherin definitely has a cadence and a rhythm to the language that I don't know if I could handle. I don't know as an actor if I could have handled it. I mean, I would try my best, but it's very specific, and it's music when they're doing it. It's absolute, which is,
I mean, it's their native language. It's their native dialect.
but the way, but is it though? I mean, they've spent all these years trying to get out of it, so
Well,
now
okay,
they're
true.
But anyway, the point is that it is music, and part of the movie is based on music. So I find that fascinating.
All right. Well, my number 4 is your number 7. It's Tar, and I watched I watched a few scenes from this movie last night, and it's just that one take scene. I just look at that, and the first time you watch it, you're just taking it all in, and you don't know what's going to happen. And then the second time you watch it, you're like, okay, at least for me, I'm like, where's the camera moving? Oh, look, the camera went down those little stairs there. Okay. All right. Wow. That's I'm like dissecting it from a clinical standpoint, but like this time that I watched it, I mean, you're kind of taking in the ebb and flow and the command of the room that she has, and just it's a big, Cate Blanchett doesn't, even though she's a forceful presence in that particular scene, she doesn't bowl over the other actor in the scene, the conducting student in the scene. She allows for the space of him to react to her, and she reacts to him. And that was what I got this last time when I watched it. And that's the stuff that I don't necessarily pay attention to that kind of detail of acting, but in a scene that's that long, and you've got all of this in your brain, and you're trying to make sure that it gets out in the right time, and that you're hitting your marks and all that stuff. And she's just present as the character in the scene at the same time that she's hitting all of her marks, and she leans up against the railing, and she kind of puts her hands in her pockets. Also, she's playing a character that is that is a very masculine character, and she looks different than other. She's not Hela from Thor Ragnarok, and she's not the Blue Jasmine lady, or she's a totally different person. Like that just, it boggles the mind that she's able to carry herself in a completely different way. Her voice is a little bit different. I mean, it's
a little deeper.
Yeah, but it's all of those things. I watched the scene close to the end of the movie where she goes home, and it's really touching, and this is a Todd Field thing where he brings you into this character in a different way. We talked about it in the episode. Like, we're meant to just despise this person, and we're meant to feel better about ourselves because we're not as bad as this person. And then he gives you that scene in her bedroom where she watches Leonard Bernstein, talk about music, and talk about what music can do to you, and how music can help you, and how music can make you feel, and why music is the only thing that can make you feel that way, and her reaction to that, and you feel this sympathy for her that you're not supposed to feel. Like, you're like, I shouldn't be feeling bad for you,
especially at that point of the film.
At that point in the film.
Yeah. At that point of the film.
Yeah, it's
you're like,
just,
screw you, dude. But
it's like Todd Field and Cate Blanchett are just like knocking you on either side of the theater every single chance they get, and I'm there for the ride. It's great.
And you know what's interesting about the scene that you were talking about, the one-shot scene, is that had to have been rehearsed. It's
Sure.
not like they could have just done it. So it's not like those moments are just new because there are a lot of times they don't rehearse on films. Olivia Colman said something interesting. She said she would like to rehearse for 88 weeks to do a theater piece and only do it one night. And she never wants to rehearse for anything on screen. Nothing. I don't know why. I mean, I get the 88 weeks of rehearsal in the one shot. I get it. Like, let's just get it over and done with and not do it again because it's scary, really scary. But they had to have rehearsed that shot because of the way that
the blocking of the Steadicam.
Exactly. But the naturalness and the nuances that both those two characters and everybody in that scene, if you watch the background players at the whole entire time, they have to be all in it. They can't not just be like, oh, okay, the camera's not there. Oh, okay, the camera. They're all in it the whole entire time. The movie's severe. It's stark. It's frightening. And not because it's a horror film. I have never seen... There's an expression, the ambitions bite the nails of success. It's from a U2 song. And I've never seen ambition and power corrupting absolutely done so well on film. And even when she's doing her thing, when she's looking at the blue suede shoes and you could see her mind's not focused on the talent versus what she wants from the talent, you still have this urge to want to be on her side. Which is perplexing as a human being who's trying to be a good human being and trying to do well in this world and not dip your toe in the dark side. Why are we feeling that way? I find that fascinating. That movie is not off-putting to me to where I can't think about watching it again. I just know that once I do watch it again, I have to be fully in. From beginning, middle, and end. I can't just go in and out. I couldn't do what you did. I couldn't just watch a scene. If a scene came on and somebody's talking about it, I could do that. And it will be debated for the rest of our existence and the rest of the human existence, whether or not Michelle Yeoh or Cate Blanchett should have won that Oscar. It will be debated because it's not fair. It's just not fair. There's no way to say that is the best versus that. I just say the right person won for that particular year.
Well, and so the good thing is that we got both performances. We
right.
That's both.
Yeah. Right. That's a better way to put it. Absolutely. Yeah. It's Tar's like nothing I've seen before, but we should know that by now from Todd Field. Because he's done that over and over and over again. I mean, like, what's the movie with Kate Winslet that he did?
Little Children.
I just saw that again a couple months ago.
Really?
I'm mad that I saw it again, actually. I was like, why did I choose this? What was wrong with me that night? It's severe. And In the Bedroom, severe.
Yeah, I haven't seen that
one. The choices, the character. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I just made that. You
gotta see it. I get it. Yeah, Sissy Spacek, Tom Wilkinson.
Yes, and Marissa Tomei and her third Oscar nomination or her second Oscar nomination.
Wow.
It's right up this alley.
Yep. Okay. Well, I need to look at it.
Subject wise, it's not even close.
No,
but
I know
it
that,
is.
But yeah,
the choices that Todd Field decides. Well. Little Children was a book. So what he chooses to show you is interesting. It's not what you would normally choose to show somebody about these characters. And same with Tar. With Tar.
Definitely. All right. You're number 3.
Glass Onion.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. That's my number 9.
That was your number 9?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Johnson. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Let him do it again and again and again. And remember, I was against it. I was against this movie being made. Nope. We only need
Knives Out is it. Yeah.
That's it. We don't need it.
Don't want to ruin it.
It's so well done. But I said this on the podcast. I can't say he topped himself because I don't know exactly what that means. But he definitely, this one is as interesting, if not just a tad bit more interesting than the original because of the last choice that's made. I'm still, what's the word? Flabbergasted? I'm blown away, no pun intended. I cannot believe that's the choice he made. What he does at the end of that film, wow. Like if I read that, I would be like, dude, let's go have a drink. Or are you sure that's what you want to do? That's what you want to do? But the answer was yes. So
I think that he asks a lot more of us as an audience. Like we've got to go a lot farther in Glass Onion versus Knives Out. Knives Out seemed a little bit more self-contained. Obviously, it was about a family, all that stuff. Glass Onion is a little bit more like far-reaching, I think, and there's a lot more that you have to kind of. I'm sure Agatha Christie did the same thing, where there was like some, chamber pieces that she would do, and then there's just these sprawling, huge whatever it is, Death on the Nile or whatever. But it still ultimately comes down to some sort of a whodunit, situation, and yeah, I like all of the puzzle pieces, and I like trying to prove him wrong. Trying to be like, and this all happens the second time you watch the movie. You're like, okay, well, I know that you ended up doing that, but like, what happens at the beginning? There was a spot in there. Nope, there wasn't. No. Well, what about that part where, no, it wasn't there. He might have made you think that it was there. You might have assumed that particular thing happened, but it didn't. There's no holes. Like you can't poke the holes that easily. He's obviously spent the time, and he's probably just as much of a curmudgeon when it comes to that stuff too, where he's like, oh, this particular, whatever it was, this particular episode of Murder, She Wrote, like completely got it wrong.
He didn't get out of the cocky duty car. What does she say in Misery? Yeah.
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 So yeah, she's ticked off at James Caan. She's like, it's just lazy writing. So but I think he's very sensitive to that stuff too. And so he takes a lot of care with that. So I'm in it for whatever next one he has. And they did it right also by keeping Benoit Blanc, but don't mix in anybody else that was in the last movie. Like, don't do that. We don't need that. We don't need some sort of like thread or some sort of like a,
high profile
tense relationship or whatever. We just need Benoit Blanc. Just go.
And high profile cameos. High profile.
Yeah, like Hugh Grant. Like that was a crazy
Ethan
one.
Hawke.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke. Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, that was great. Okay, I'll say one last thing. Okay, so you're right. It's a puzzle, and I love that comparison. You're looking at a puzzle box for the picture, and then when you put it all together, you're not surprised by the picture because you've been looking at the picture the whole entire time to try to figure out how to put the puzzle together. That's exactly what he does in Glass Onion, but at the end, you're still like, that's the picture? But you've been seeing the picture the whole time. You know exactly what the pieces are. You just don't know how they go together, but yet you do know how they go together because he tells you. And it's still stunning at the end. You're like, what?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No,
well done.
Really cool.
Well done.
Yeah. All right, my number 3 is Nope, and that's your number 5, so we're going to talk about it. So last night, I watched a lot of clips from movies, and then I was like, okay, let me pull up Nope. All right, I'm going to start at the beginning here, and I watched the whole movie.
Of course you did.
So
that's your review. That's your analysis right now. That's it. That's all you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's infinitely watchable. Similar to Glass Onion, it doesn't have any holes. Like, it just doesn't. There's things where you're like, oh, why would they do that? And it's like, oh, well, they kind of had to do that. Or, why are they I noticed something that's so specific. There's a scene where something crashes into his truck, into Daniel Kaluuya's truck, and there's a little reflector on this thing that crashes into his truck, and they spent way too long on it for what I was like, wait a second, like there's a close-up shot of this reflector, and then I backed it up and I watched it again, and I was like, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be looking at? And it's right in the center of the frame, and I backed it up again and I watched it again, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then when you go to the end of the movie, reflectors actually play a particularly large part in the climax in the movie. They're in a specific spot on Daniel Kaluuya that is important. So I was like, oh my gosh, like they paid that off. They paid the reflectors off. There's so many little things. And the other thing the last thing I'll say about Nope is that I was super impressed with Daniel Kaluuya. This is the fourth time I've seen Nope. And I was just so impressed with Daniel Kaluuya this time. His ability to play that character who's so uncomfortable around people, but comfortable around horses, around animals, who is just, he's so knotted up inside. He's got to sell his horses because his business isn't doing well after what happened to his father. I mean, there's all this stuff that's just like, it's just pent up inside of him, and he's able to hold that, but then he's also able to move forward and to be confident in the times when he needs to be confident, and really like look out for his family and focus on what he needs to focus on when he needs to focus on it. And it's just like, how do you hold both of those things? You know, he's not like the guy whimpering in the corner, but at the same time, like, he really doesn't want to have to talk to you about this safety briefing type of a thing. So I don't know.
And no respect for the history of what he does. He's living in a world that doesn't respect the history of what his family's done, and the history of this particular business, or this particular business.
The horse training business for the movies.
And the fact that we don't know that is yet again something in our culture that is mind-blowing to me, that we don't know the origins of certain things, and or are taught an origin sort of exist, but not really. And we're told to focus on something else, which is pretty much the whole theme of the movie, if you think about it. Go ahead.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, and then the Steven Yeun side story, it makes you think that it's a diversion, but it really isn't, because it is one of those things that is integral to the film, and it also like shines a mirror to us as the film goers, and that it's like, no, this is what you want. So he's the way that he lives his life is because he's trying. And that's the other thing I really got in this one, like in this viewing, is that the way that he deals with his trauma is in a performative manner, and he instead of shying away from what happened to himself, he's leaning into it for better and for worse. So and
we talked about that because that's all he knows. That's all he's ever known. He's been trained to do that. And there is a big, not a big, but there has been discussion about how Nope was forgotten at the Oscars and forgotten. And so is Us. You know, that's first thing. Second of all, who cares? Okay. I mean, really, honestly and truthfully, who cares? It's one of the best movies of the year. It will be talked about for the rest of our existence.
It's epic.
It's epic. It's well done. It is perplexing to people. Some people got it. Some people didn't. When people finally figured it out, they were like, oh, wow, that's crazy great. So it matters not. The Academy has given Jordan Peele an Oscar for Get Out. So that's taken care of. If that's the end all be all, or if that gets him in the door to make more movies, then I'm glad he has it. And he deserved it for Get Out. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it for Nope, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it for Us. I just don't think that should be the one footnote to this movie, that it wasn't nominated for Oscars. It matters not at all. It is just well done. And we were talking about that when we first saw it, and we talked about it. We tried to poke holes in it that whole podcast. I was like, well, what about this? And you were like, nope. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, and then you were saying something. I was like, no, but that's because of that. And you were like, oh yeah, that is. And I was like, yep. You know, so I just give back that truck up to him. Apple, whoever, whatever Jordan Peele wants to do, let him do it, because this is what we get. And the performances, you just don't have to mention anything else. There is not a missing link in any of it. There's not a stinker in the bunch.
Yeah, well, that's true.
There is
Keke Palmer's great.
Oh man, amazing. They were talking about Oscar nomination possibly for her. And I could see why she's in the conversation. But I like the idea of the chain or a chain link fence or an actual chain. Without one link, you can't have the next.
Yeah.
And there's not one missing. And in particular with the performances, even the smaller minor characters, you know, the lady who
Fry's
comes
electronics guy.
yeah. Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
He's great. He's great. So whatever Jordan Peele wants Hollywood, give it to him.
Yeah.
Whatever amount of money he wants, whoever he wants to hire, let him. Because he's got 3 movies. This is what we've gotten. Those are like 7 or 8 movies to everybody else.
Yeah.
This is his first 3. I mean, there are multiple movies inside his movies that could be separate movies. He has 3. That's amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing.
All right. You're number 2.
Ah, this was tough. This was tough this year. It was tough. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is number 2.
All right. We're going to talk about it later.
Wow. Okay. All right. So your number 2 is obviously
Top Gun Maverick, which is your number 1.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Cool.
And I said it and I just kind of was like, okay, now I have to stick to that. But then I kind of forgot I said it. And I said, watch it be my favorite movie of the year. And it exactly the same thing that's happened most of the years for my number 1. It's just a list I put and I just put numbers by him. And I was like, that happened to be number 1. And I thought it was going to switch and swap around, but it isn't. It stayed. So which one do you want to talk about first? Everything? Or do you want to talk about
We can talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. So yeah, that's...
I just have to say, this is meant to be humorous and in jest. Okay. So take it with a grain of salt. You said it's not possible that it will win 3 acting Oscars. You can't see it happening. And I said, what did I say? Do you remember what I said? One word.
Nope. I don't know.
Parasite.
Well, that's right. You did say Parasite. Yeah.
And I said,
but then
Everything
I came back
Everywhere
and said,
will not
no acting
underperform.
Oscars. I said no acting Oscars for Parasite, which there weren't. But
right, but that's not the point though. The point is that nobody thought it would win Best Picture because it was a foreign language film.
Yes, correct.
No one thought he could be Best Director because he's basically unknown to Hollywood or mainstream Hollywood.
Yeah.
No one thought it could win international and Best Picture at the same time. And I said, yes, it can. And yes, it will. And that's exactly what happened with Everything. And I just have to, I don't say that to pump myself up. I say that in celebration of this great movie.
Yeah.
It deserved everything that it got. It deserved to be seen and heard and to be taken seriously as a film. And it was. And we said it back in the day. When it first came out, we talked about it being Oscar caliber, this Oscar, because I listened. And I listened very closely to our predictions of the Oscars, in particular on this film. And this is what I said. I said, just because I have to say it, Carrie Condon will win because they want to give Banshees an Oscar. Mm-hmm. But watch out for Jamie Lee Curtis. Watch out. And then, but we also said any of the 5 of that supporting actress could have won. The point is that I have not seen Everything twice. I've only seen it one time. It's still on the Showtime thing, and it's still like buy it for $19.99, and I just can't get myself over to paying $19.99 for it. If it doesn't come soon enough, I probably will just buy it because I can't stop thinking about, oh, I can't wait to see that again. Oh, I can't wait to see that again. Oh, what about that concept? I can't wait to be involved in that concept again. And it's just thrilling that a mainstream organization, the Oscars, fell in love with this movie because it's that great. So,
and
I'm
it's
happy
that
for it.
crazy. Like, it's a crazy movie. It's crazy. I didn't watch the whole thing again last night, but I did watch scenes. But I mean, I watched the fanny pack scene where Kiwi Kwan eats the
best
chapstick
Academy Award
and then
winner.
and then just beats people up with his little fanny pack. But and there's just been a handful of scenes that I peppered throughout, but the last one I watched was the climax at the end of the movie, and that climax. So the one thing that I got from that this last time, because I've probably seen it 4 times.
Nice.
5 times, maybe 4 times.
I'm
yeah.
jealous. I'm jealous.
But what I got from it this last time was that the editing, which is also Academy Award winning, the editing and the directors, also Academy Award winners, Daniels, they
Excuse me.
don't allow you to stew in the melodrama of the end of the film. It's a very emotional, an impactful scene between a mother and a daughter, and it's epic, and she's getting the daughter's getting sucked into a bagel, and then it also cuts to like her just walking out of this out of the laundromat and trying to go to her car, and then Michelle Yeoh going after her, and it intercuts between, you know, a rock with 2 googly eyes on it, and, you know, the moment that you start to like feel a little bit like, oh man, I'm going to lose it. Then it goes to Rakakuni, and then it goes to like Michelle Yeoh picking up the guy and running with him so that he can go to his Rakakuni, you know, and I think for people like me.
So great.
Yeah.
So great.
He's like, what are you doing? And she's like, grab my hair.
So great. So great.
But for people like me who are like cynical people to a certain extent, and I don't want to feel all of that stuff. Like, no, I don't feel that. But it gets you to that point where you're like, you're feeling it. And when they do end up actually having their interaction outside right by her daughter's car, it makes that hit so much harder. And it's undeniable. Like all of the things that they've gone through and that we've seen them go through, it is much more realistic somehow because we've seen all of these unrealistic things.
It's a good way to look at it.
And it's hard to watch that scene, but it's definitely fulfilling. So yeah.
I agree with everything you said, and my buddy Terry and I were texting during the Oscars, and there was a running joke about the adult toy that's in Everything Everywhere that I can't
the Auditors Award? Is that what you're saying? Yes. Okay.
Yes. I can't think of another way to explain it without actually saying it. I just don't want to say those words on the podcast.
Yeah, you don't need to.
No, but it's hilarious. And he kept texting, but is the Academy ready for fill in the blanks? But are they ready for a film with fill in the blanks? And so it became a running joke. And then once it won, I was like, well, I guess the Academy's ready for fill in the blank. And that's the humorous part that allows me to believe that the machine known as the Academy is moving very slowly. I've said this before. It's moving very slowly, but it is moving. And the fact that a movie like this has garnered so much attention makes the machine move faster in the right direction, in the possibility that you can never say, well, you can't watch that movie and that's not Oscar worthy because of this, when things that happen in Everything Everywhere All at Once 10 years ago, you would have never said was going to be in an Academy Award winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress. And as for Michelle Yeoh and Stephanie Hsu at the end of that film, and even Kiwi Kwan, because we said...
And James Hong, too.
Yeah.
The Gong Gong, the grandpa.
Right. Oh, so great.
When she looks back and he's like grabbing onto her... I mean, no spoilers. We're being vague enough, but he's grabbing onto her. Even that, like her dad is not giving up on her, not giving up on her daughter, but he's also got like a printer strapped around him. You know what I mean? Like he's got a coffee pot behind him. You know, it's like it's touching, but it's like also like not serious, but then also touching.
And the machine moves faster. The whole idea of that right there. But the the thing about Academy Award winning performances, you could pretty much lock it down to one scene sometimes. You can say, this is why.
Yeah.
And that scene, and they showed it at the Oscars for Michelle Yeoh. This is why. This is why. And we said back in the day when we first talked about this movie that Kiwi Kwan is going to be an Oscar nominee, and he is going to win not only for his performance, but for the best fanny pack fight scene I've ever seen in my whole entire life. We mentioned that. I went back and listened to it, and I was like, yeah, because it's clever, and he takes it seriously, and you can feel that intensity from, because he had to spend weeks learning a fanny pack fight.
Yep.
But it seems completely natural and just the way it should be. So it is hunkered down to human emotion and true human emotion, but everything else that goes along with it. How many times can you say everything in a discussion about this movie? A lot. It does make it. It does elevate it to a different level. I'm glad that those emotional moments are there, but everything else that happens in, the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis has an Oscar for that performance is crazy great. That's great. I know a lot of people have problems with her winning for that. And there's been a whole brouhaha on Twitter about it and who should have won and blah, 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 blah. But she won. Mm-hmm. And the fact that she won for that, regardless of nepotism, regardless of it's her turn. And I just don't buy into any of that. We talked about the braveness, is that a word? Mm-hmm. The commitment to the muffin top and to the strange little, it's not even dialect, it's more of a pattern of speech that she has, and it's probably on the page, and the hot dog dance and the taking a classic Hollywood moment, and all of a sudden a foot comes up. We talked about all of that, and yet not for one split second does she flicker. Not for a split second. She's all in the whole entire time. And you mentioned something in our original podcast about this, about how when she was being interviewed, she kept deflecting things away from her and talking about Stephanie Hsu and talking about the Daniels and talking about Kiwi Kwan and talking about Michelle Yeoh. This is the most important part of this. I'm glad I'm here, but so that momentum is what happened at the Oscars. So it's nice that all of that happened, but yet she now is an Oscar winner because of this movie. That's crazy great. Yeah. I love it.
No, that's awesome. All right, let's talk about Tom Cruise and Top Gun Maverick. That's your number one movie of the year. It's my number two.
Shocking.
Yeah.
On some level, because
You had never seen Top Gun before this year.
Yes, I had.
Oh, you had?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you'd never seen that.
It's not my thing.
Okay.
It's not, and I said that in such a snotty way, didn't I?
Oh,
I'm better than that. Well, I'm wrong. There you go, people. I recorded it. I am completely surprised and happy about the fact that I keep making these bold statements, at least in my mind. I don't know if I've ever recorded, but Blade Runner 2049, that's a prime example. Why do they need that? I don't need that film. Top 10 of that year. One of the best of that year. Do we need another Maverick? Do we need another Top Gun? Do we need another shirtless scene on the beach? Maybe. Do we need any of that stuff? No. Why are they doing this? This is a waste of our time. That was my frame of mind. That was my thought. And once again, I need to apologize for my snotty ass attitude about things like that, because I don't know why my mind goes there, but I have never, I was going to say I've never been more wrong, but there's a lot of people who debate that, but I was wrong. I was completely wrong. It is thrilling. It's a thrilling ride. And before I forget, John Hamm's line reading, when he says Maverick's name after Maverick saves the day, is the best line reading of 2022. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
After Maverick saves it. You mean like at the end of the movie?
Yeah. When he just says his name, and he says it with that like surprise. You don't remember that moment?
I don't think so. You mean like when they're like on the deck and they're all coming back, they just give each other a nod?
No. He's I think they're watching. I don't remember exactly the moment, but he's watching what Maverick does. He's watching something as close to the end of the movie, and I don't want to try to imitate it because it's perfect. It is, it is the amount of shock that character should have, that amount of dumbfoundedness that Maverick got away with it again, and that his reputation has preceded himself. It's all in one reading of that name.
Yeah.
And when you watch it, you'll see what I'm
Okay,
saying
all
again.
right.
And I meant to mention it the first time, and I
Oh,
probably
wow.
would have been more articulate about it because I probably would have remembered more. But the movie works on so many levels. It's popcorn entertainment at its best, meaning popcorn entertainment best. But the heart and soul is intact in that movie. Cruise's performances on point. Jennifer Connelly, we're going to start a religion. That will happen, and it should happen. And I will write one of the gospels according to Jennifer. I will write a gospel about Jennifer.
I just
But
want to go
she-
sailing with her. That's all.
Yeah, because and we talked about that when we originally talked about it after I saw it, how she's commanding that scene. The movie is Maverick, Top Gun Maverick. It's Cruise's vehicle, but yet she goes, "Oh, wait a second. By the way, Tom, I have one of the Golden Boys. Let me show you why." And she just overtakes that scene because that's what that character would do. And that character never...
She's an equal to him.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
that way. Yeah.
She's his superior in that scene, though.
Well, yes, but what I mean is that
because he's like holding on, like
Exactly.
Mr. G-Force is like, ah, and she's like, calm down, I've got it.
But she's like, I'm my own person. I am also
Right.
good at things. Like, come on.
And that, to me, is a detail that I was not expecting from Top Gun Maverick. I wasn't thinking they were going to marginalize people, and I wasn't thinking that they would go back to a 1980s attitude about women in film, but I wasn't expecting it to be as deeply written as it was. I wasn't expecting her to be like, yeah, you're not here to save me.
Yeah, well, Kelly
I'm
McGillis'
not-
character, it also has
Yeah.
that. There's a scene in that, like the tactical trailer where she's like, what you did is dumb. Like, you shouldn't have done that, and she's
Right.
going after him, and she's not pulling punches, and she's right in that situation. She's right. So, and she's not, she's good at what she does. So just like Jennifer Connelly. So
I would like to see a movie about those two characters, like prequels about those two characters.
yeah.
So, or who knows, because they're such strong characters, even though they're a supporting character and a minor character, if you will. And then Val Kilmer. And then what doesn't work in this film? Tell me what doesn't work. And maybe in 25 years, I'll see through it and I'll think, oh, that's some cheesy stuff. But they tell you what's going to happen. They reiterate it 4 or 5 times. You see it a million times, computer generated stuff about the mission and then the actual mission. And then you're in the mission. You see it 4 or 5 times and it's thrilling every single time. The supporting characters are etched out deeper than what you would expect for something like this. There is layers to those characters. There's layers to Bob. You can see it in his face when they're talking about him. You can see it. So it's exciting and thrilling and epic and just a powerhouse. And I felt happy I experienced it after I experienced it. So instead of it being this, and I'm all about the deep, profound, smack you around, tar, triangle of sadness, I'm all about it. But it is also great to feel joy and the epicness of joy in a film. And that's what that film was for me. And it probably will be for the rest of my life. I think it's like one of those ones you celebrate life when you're watching it. And it sounds cheesy and nobody likes to talk about gross, cheesy stuff like that. But that's the way I felt. I felt joy. And
okay.
I was going to say, we need that. I needed that.
Well, I do too, but there's a YouTube series that the Wired magazine does, and it's an expert explains things in 5 different levels. And I think that this movie does something similar, where it's like you can watch this movie on like the level of action movie. Look at those planes. Those are really cool. They're going really fast. Like, oh, those are pretty pictures. There's beautiful people. Like, you can do that. And then there's another level where it's like, oh my gosh, like the stunts in this thing are kind of amazing. And they really did a lot. And they committed to these roles, not just on, learning the lines type of a thing, or, whatever, staying fit type of thing, but also like getting up there in the planes, being a part of it, and being committed to making it look as realistic as possible, period. And then there's lower levels where you get into the actual characters and the characters are fleshed out. And then there's even lower levels where you're like, hey, all of the stuff that happened in Top Gun, there are corollaries in this movie. So you can dig and mine and dig deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where you're like, the Ed Harris character is the same as the James Tolkien character from the beginning. It was like, I gotta send you to Top Gun. Like, there's the Tom Skerritt scene is the same as the Val Kilmer scene when he goes to Tom Skerritt's house and he goes to Val Kilmer's house. Like, you go through the piano scene is the same. All of it's the same. Like, but then somehow they make it new and fresh and not copycat and not rubber stamped. It's dynamic, but they could have copped out. They could have just said like, "Hey, you remember planes? Remember motorcycles? Remember beaches?" Like, they could have done that, but they didn't. So I mean, it's props to the writing and just the whole production. But yeah, it was kind of an amazing Rube Goldberg machine that they created that works.
Well, and also, if that stuff wasn't in it, we would have been disappointed. We want to be reminded, and we want to connect the two, and we want to say, oh yeah, that's the same character, but look, it's that same character in this new situation.
It's Iceman Hangman. It's
right.
I
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's Goose Rooster. It's
I love
just
that
keep
too.
Going down. Oh, that's Penny Benjamin. They talked about her in the first movie.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And usually I would roll my eyes at all of those things, but for whatever reason, it's done with such integrity and such honesty that I was like, I'm in. I'm 100% in. And like I said, it's nice. I wish I'd seen it in the theater originally with everybody. That would have been something that I feel disappointed with missing. I wasn't ready for something like that myself. I wasn't ready for that film at that particular time. And, that's something I will regret. But when they re-release it, if it does ever get re-released, or if it comes to like the Dollar Theater or whatever, like the what we call the Bird Theater, the old vaudeville house that they show second run movies, whatever. I should go and see it because I need to experience it in the theater, in the bigness of the theater. But even watching it at home, you can feel that bigness of it. And that's hard to pull off. And the last thing I'll say is there was Oscar talk about Tom Cruise in Maverick. If you had told me that last year, I think my eyes would have never recovered. They would have rolled so far back in my head that I would be just white-eyed at this point because I would been like, really? Come on. Like, and I would have been so wrong because it is the nuances that he brings, the subtlety that he brings, the subtext that he brings. When he's at that bar in that first scene, when he's outside of that bar in that first scene, that scene with Val Kilmer is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And that has a lot to do with the, what would be interesting is if you didn't know any of the backstory or any of the truth, the integrity of the scene would still be intact because that's what they both brought to that. They brought the realness of what was happening to both of them in real life, plus the two characters, and they melded it together. And that's really hard to do. It's really hard to not be self-indulgent with your own emotions when the emotions of something else are dictating to what you have to do. Because you're like, well, if I do this, I'm feeling this. No, that's not what the character's feeling. And they find the perfect blend of the two. And that is extremely hard to do. And if he had been nominated, he would have deserved that nomination. tough year,
Yeah.
year. And he would have been the only one nominated before, because all 5 of the actors this year were all first-time nominees.
That's right. Yeah.
Would he have won? I mean, I doubt it, but could he have won? And would I be okay with him winning? Absolutely. Because it really just it's one of his best performances to date.
Yeah.
Hands down.
All right. Well, I agree. Yeah. And that's in the same way that I've seen Top Gun a bajillion times. I'm sure I will see Top Gun Maverick a bajillion times also. So I do get excited to the point where Steph's like, no, we can't watch Top Gun Maverick tonight. It's like, it's too much. She's like, we've already seen it like 6 times. Let's press pause on that for a little while. So
the most surprising thing though, is that I'm sitting here thinking, I would be doing the same thing. I will be doing this same thing.
Yeah.
And if you had told me a year ago I was going to say that about Top Gun Maverick, I would have been like, let me go read Shakespeare.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, but it is that great
Yeah.
that it deserves to be watched as much as it costs to you to be watched.
Yeah.
So next time Steph text me, I'll be like, I'm on his side, Steph.
I just need to, I'll leverage.
little moral support.
There we go. All right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. You can tweet us at actorengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. And we'll see you next time.